cold night. The night was cold. Not normal cold. This was the kind of cold that entered metal walls, crawled across the floor, and rested inside bones. The human outpost stood alone on the frozen planet, far from any city or space lane. Most humans avoided this place. Only one man lived here now. His name was Ethan. Ethan was not young anymore. His hair had started to turn gray, and his body carried old pain from old wars. He worked as a maintenance worker for the outpost. The job was quiet, lonely, but that was how he liked it. Tonight, the heater was failing again. Ethan lay on his small bed, wrapped in a thin blanket. The light above flickered softly. The wind outside howled like something alive, scraping against the metal walls. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Then he felt it, a small movement. At first, he thought it was just his tired body shaking from a cold. He pulled the blanket tighter and turned to his side. But the movement came again. Slow, careful. Something touched his arm. Ethan opened his eyes. The room was dark, only blue light coming from the control panel near the door. He listened. The outpost was silent, except for the wind. Then he felt warmth. That made no sense. The heater was broken. The air was freezing. But under the blanket, something was warm. Ethan slowly lifted the blanket just a little. His breath stopped. 3 small creatures were curled against his chest. They were tiny, smaller than house cats. Their bodies were covered in thin scales, dull in color, cracked from cold. Small wings were folded tightly against their sides. One of them made a soft sound, almost like a cry. They were dragon babies. Ethan did not move. Everyone in the galaxy knew dragons were dangerous. Even baby dragons were feared. Humans were taught one rule from childhood. Never touch a dragon. Never help a dragon. Never get close. But these babies were not attacking. They were not breathing fire. They were shaking, freezing. The smallest one pressed its head against Ethan's chest, seeking warmth. Its tiny claws held onto his shirt. The other 2 followed, crawling closer under the blanket. Ethan's heart beat fast. If anyone saw this, he would be arrested. Maybe worse. Dragon territory was nearby. That meant their parents were close. And if a dragon parent found a human touching their young, no human ever survived that. The babies trembled again. Ethan looked at their faces. Their eyes were closed. They trusted him without fear. That trust hurt more than fear ever could. Slowly, very slowly, Ethan pulled the blanket back over them. He wrapped it around their small bodies. "It's okay," he whispered, even though he knew they could not understand him. The baby dragon nearest to his chest stopped shaking. Its breathing became slow and calm. Warm air touched Ethan's skin. For the first time that night, Ethan felt heat. Outside, the wind grew louder. Far away, deep in the frozen hills, something massive moved. Sensors across the planet lit up one by one. Dragon life signs. Inside the outpost, Ethan stayed awake. He did not sleep. He listened to every sound, every crack in the metal, every breath the babies took. His mind raced with thoughts. How did they get here? Why were they alone? Why did they choose him? The smallest baby moved again and climbed higher on his chest. Its wings opened just a little, covering his neck like a scarf. Ethan smiled softly. He remembered another cold night long ago. A war zone. Children hiding in ruins. Crying for warmth. Crying for safety. He remembered how no one came to help them. "I won't let you freeze," he whispered. Outside the outpost, the ground shook. Something large landed not far away. Ethan felt it through the floor. The babies reacted at once. They pressed closer to him, their small hearts beating fast. Fear moved through them like a wave. Ethan tightened his arms around them. Whatever was coming, whatever rule he had broken, he would not let go. The cold night had brought the dragon babies to him. And before the sun rose, the entire galaxy would learn what one human did next. The rule that should never be broken. Ethan did not sleep. The dragon babies were still wrapped inside his blanket, pressed close to his chest. Their warmth felt real, almost heavy, like a promise he could not take back. Outside, the wind stopped. That scared him more than the storm. The frozen planet was never quiet. Silence here meant only one thing. Something was listening. Ethan slowly sat up on the bed. He moved carefully, afraid even the smallest sound could wake the babies. One of them opened a single eye, bright, glowing faintly in the dark, then closed it again. They trusted him. That trust was dangerous. Ethan looked at the metal door of the outpost. The control panel blinked red. A warning sign he had never seen before appeared on the screen. Unauthorized life signs detected. Then another line appeared. Dragon class. High priority. Ethan's heart dropped. The outpost had sent a signal. That meant the galaxy knew. Far above the planet, satellites turned their focus. Military stations received alerts. Alien commanders stared at screens in disbelief. Dragon babies inside a human shelter. That had never happened before. Inside the room, the babies stirred. A low, weak sound came from one of them. Not a roar, not fire, a cry. Ethan placed his hand gently on its back. "Chill," he whispered. "You're safe." But he was lying. He stood up slowly, keeping the blanket wrapped around them. His legs shook, not from cold, but from fear. He walked to the heater and tried to restart it. Nothing. The temperature dropped again. The babies reacted at once. Their bodies pressed tighter against him. Their claws gripped his clothes, not in attack, but in panic. Ethan swallowed hard. He made a choice. He grabbed his old thermal jacket from a wall and wrapped it around the blanket. Then he turned off the lights. Darkness was safer. Darkness hid mistakes. A deep sound rolled across the ground. Not thunder. A roar. The babies froze. Ethan felt it in his chest. That sound was old. Powerful. Angry. Dragons were awake. Outside, shadows moved across the ice. Not close yet, but coming. Ethan backed away from the door and stood near the center of the room. His mind raced. If soldiers arrived first, they would take the babies by force. They would not care if the babies survived. Dragons were weapons to them, nothing more. If the dragon parents arrived first, Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. No human had ever been forgiven for touching dragon young. The smallest baby lifted its head and looked at him. Its eyes glowed softly, not with fire, but with fear. It made a quiet sound and touched his chin with its nose. Ethan felt something break inside him. He remembered orders from the war. Cold orders. Cruel orders. He remembered following them once. "Never again. I won't give you up," he said quietly. The control panel beeped again. Security drones inbound. That was it. Minutes passed like hours. Then the sound came. Heavy footsteps. Metal against ice. Mechanical movement. The door shook once. Twice. A voice came through the speaker, sharp and calm. "Human Ethan, step away from the dragon young. This is your final warning." The baby screamed. Not loud, not strong, but full of fear. Ethan stepped forward, standing between the door and the bed. He tightened the blanket around the babies, shielding them with his body. "No," he said. His voice was not loud, but it was firm. There was a pause. "Human," the voice replied, "you are breaking interstellar law. Release them now." The ground suddenly trembled, not from machines, from something alive. A shadow passed over the outpost. The walls groaned. Ice cracked outside. The drones stopped moving. The voice went silent. Then a new sound filled the air. A roar so powerful it shook the sky. The babies stopped crying. They listened. They knew that voice. Ethan looked up as the ceiling glowed red from reflected firelight. Something ancient had arrived, and Ethan was standing in the middle of a choice that would either end his life or change the galaxy forever. When the door finally opened, the door did not open right away. That was worse. Ethan stood still, the blanket tight around his arms. The dragon babies were silent now. Too silent. Their small bodies were pressed against him, listening to the world outside. The red warning light on the wall blinked faster. Then the door unlocked by itself. Slowly, with a sharp metal sound, it slid open. Cold air rushed inside the room like a living thing. Frost spread across the floor. The temperature dropped in seconds. 3 security drones floated in, their lights scanning every corner. Behind them stood 2 alien soldiers in heavy armor. Their weapons were already raised. "Target confirmed," one of them said. "Human in contact with dragon young." The babies moved again. One hissed softly, sparks jumping from its mouth. Weak sparks. Afraid sparks. Ethan stepped forward. "Stop," he said. The soldiers did not move. "Human Ethan," the commander spoke through the helmet speaker. "You're ordered to place the dragon young on the floor and step back." Ethan looked down at the babies. They looked back at him, not as weapons, not as monsters, but as children. "No," Ethan said again. The drones shifted closer, their weapons charged. A single shot would end everything. The smallest baby suddenly cried out. Its sound was high and broken. It lifted its tiny head and released a weak flame into the air. The flame did not attack. It painted the room with light. Outside, something answered. The ground shook so hard that the soldiers lost balance. One drone crashed into the wall and sparked. The commander shouted, "All units, hold position." A shadow passed over the open door. Then another. The sky outside turned dark, even though it was still night. A massive shape landed in the ice field near the outpost. The impact sent shockwaves through the metal walls. Ethan felt it in his bones. The babies stopped crying. They pressed their faces into his chest. They knew. The soldiers stepped back. Dragon-class entity detected. The system voice announced. Threat level maximum. The air outside grew hot. Steam rose as ice melted. A deep voice echoed across the land. Not loud, not rushed, angry. The commander's hand shook. "This is bad," one soldier whispered. The drones tried to move again, but their systems failed. One by one, they dropped to the floor, powerless. Ethan took a step toward the open door. The commander shouted, "Human, stay where you are." Ethan did not listen. He walked outside. The cold and heat mixed in the air, burning his lungs. Snow melted under his boots. In front of the outpost stood a dragon, so large it blocked the stars. Her scales glowed like dark fire. Her eyes burned gold. Wings spread wide, covering the sky. She was a dragon queen. Ethan's heart pounded, but his feet did not stop. The soldiers fell to their knees. The queen lowered her head. Her eyes locked onto the blanket in Ethan's arms. The babies moved. Slowly, they peeked out. They made small sounds, calling to her. The queen's roar shook the planet. Ethan felt it push against his chest, but he did not fall. He stepped forward and carefully placed the blanket on the ground between them. He did not step away. He stood over the babies. The queen leaned closer. Heat rolled off her body. Fire burned behind her teeth. "Human," her voice thundered inside Ethan's mind, not through sound. "Why do my young carry your scent?" Ethan swallowed. "They were cold," he said simply. "They needed warmth." The queen's eyes narrowed. "You touched them." "Yes." "You broke our law." "Yes." The soldiers waited for fire. The galaxy held its breath. One baby crawled forward and touched Ethan's boot with its nose. The queen froze. Her fire dimmed. She looked from her young to the human to the blanket wrapped around them. Then she did something no one expected. She lowered her massive head. Not in attack, in silence. And the most powerful being on the planet waited for the human to speak again. The question that could end a human. The world was silent. Not a single machine moved. Not a single soldier breathed loudly. Even the wind seemed afraid to make sound. Ethan stood in front of the Dragon Queen. The blanket lay on the ice between them. 3 dragon babies rested inside it, warm and alive. The queen's eyes burned like twin suns. Her breath rolled across the ground, melting snow, turning ice into steam. Every breath she took could end Ethan's life. Her voice returned inside his mind. "Human," she said, "speak carefully." Ethan felt fear, real fear, claw at his chest. His legs wanted to run. His body wanted to kneel. But he did neither. He looked down at the babies. Then he looked back up. "They came to me," he said. "I did not take them." The queen's eyes narrowed. "They entered a human shelter," she replied. "They touched your skin. That is forbidden." "Yes," Ethan said. But they were freezing. The soldiers behind him shifted nervously. One wrong word and they would all burn. The queen stepped closer. Each step cracked the ground. "Do you know," she asked, "how many humans have tried to steal dragon young?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Too many." "And do you know," she continued, "what happens to those humans?" "Yes." Fire reflected in Ethan's eyes. He did not look away. "But I am not like them," he said. The queen let out a low growl. The sound vibrated through Ethan's bones. What makes you different? Ethan took a deep breath. I stayed, he said. The queen paused. When the cold came, I stayed. When the alarm sounded, I stayed. When your shadow fell over my home, I stayed. He swallowed. I could have run. I could have pushed them away. But I didn't. The babies moved. One crawled closer to Ethan's leg and leaned against him. Its small wings wrapped around his ankle. The queen saw it. Her anger flickered. You risked your life, she said, for warmth. For them, Ethan replied. A long silence followed. Then the queen asked the question that froze the soldiers where they stood. Human, do you know what they are? Ethan shook his head. Only that they are children. The queen's breath stopped. That word hit harder than any weapon. Children. She looked at her young. The cracks in their scales. The weak wings. The signs of cold and hunger. Her voice lowered. They're my first clutch, she said. Born during war. Hunted since birth. Ethan's chest tightened. I did not know, he said. That makes your choice worse, the queen said. The soldiers raised their weapons again. Ethan closed his eyes for a second. Then punish me, he said. But don't punish them. The queen's eyes locked onto him. You would take their punishment? Yes. The galaxy held its breath. The queen leaned forward until her massive face was inches from Ethan. Her heat burned his skin. Fire danced inside her throat. Why? She asked. Ethan opened his eyes. Because someone once did not protect us, he said quietly. And I promised myself I would never be that someone again. The queen pulled back. Fire faded from her mouth. The soldiers did not understand what they were seeing. A dragon queen, thinking. The smallest baby crawled fully out of the blanket and walked toward the queen. It stumbled, weak, then turned back and cried. Ethan knelt and gently lifted it, placing it back beside its siblings. The queen watched every movement. Careful, gentle, human. Finally, she spoke. You have answered correctly, she said. The soldiers gasped. Correctly, one whispered. The queen raised her head high. This human will not be harmed. The ground trembled as her voice echoed across the ice. And the law of dragons will change tonight. Ethan looked up, shocked. The queen looked down at him. You show my children warmth, she said. Now you will face what that truly costs. Her wings spread wide. The sky burned red again. Because mercy, in the dragon world, always came with a price. The price of dragon mercy. The sky did not return to normal. It stayed red. The dragon queen stood tall, her wings stretched wide, blocking the stars. Firelight reflected on the ice, making the land look like it was burning. Ethan slowly stood up. The soldiers remained frozen. No one dared to move. Even the machines stayed silent, afraid to interrupt what was happening. The queen looked down at Ethan. Mercy, she said, her voice deep and heavy, is not free. Ethan nodded. I know. The queen turned her head toward the soldiers. Her eyes burned brighter. These young were hunted, she said. Tracked by your kind. Marked as weapons before they could walk. The commander tried to speak. We were following interstellar law. The queen roared. The sound threw the soldiers back. Their weapons fell from their hands. The ground cracked under the force of her anger. Your laws, she said, nearly killed my children. The babies cried softly. The sound pulled at Ethan's heart. The queen lowered her voice again. You protected them, she said to Ethan. Now you will pay the price of that protection. Ethan did not step back. What price? He asked. The queen's eyes narrowed. You will be bound to them. The soldiers looked up in shock. Ethan frowned. Bound how? The queen stepped closer. Heat rolled over him like a wave. You will become their witness, she said. Their proof. Ethan did not understand. The queen continued. For centuries, dragons have been feared, hunted, turned into stories of fire and death. Humans see us as monsters. Her gaze softened for a brief moment as she looked at her young. But you saw children. She looked back at Ethan. You will stand before the galaxy and speak what you saw. The commander shouted. That is impossible. A human cannot speak for dragons. The queen's eyes flashed. He already did. Silence followed. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle on him. What if they don't listen? He asked. The queen's mouth opened slightly, fire glowing inside. Then the galaxy will burn, she said calmly. The babies moved again. One crawled onto Ethan's boot, another leaned against his leg. They did not understand politics or power. They only knew safety. The queen lifted one massive claw and touched the ground. Symbols burned into the ice, glowing with ancient light. "Step forward," she commanded. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then stepped into the circle. The air changed instantly. Pressure filled his chest. His vision blurred. He felt something touch his mind. Not pain. Memory. He saw the babies as they were found. Cold. Alone. Crawling toward warmth. He felt their fear, their trust. The queen spoke ancient words. "Let the bond be known," she said. "Let the human carry the truth." The light faded. Ethan fell to one knee, breathing hard. The queen pulled back. "It is done." The soldiers stared in horror. "What have you done to him?" the commander demanded. The queen looked at him with cold fire. "I have made him untouchable." The commander swallowed. "By what authority?" The queen lifted her head high. "By the authority of survival." She turned to Ethan one last time. "You may live," she said, "but your life will no longer be small." Ethan looked down at the babies. They climbed back into the blanket, curling against each other and against him. He understood then. Saving them did not end the danger. It only changed its shape. High above, galaxy-wide signals activated. A summons was sent. The Dragon Council, the Interstellar Court, and one human witness. The universe was about to hear a story it was never ready to believe. And Ethan would be forced to tell it. When the galaxy was forced to listen. The chamber was not made for humans. It was vast, cold, silent. Ethan stood alone at the center of the interstellar court. The floor beneath him was clear crystal, showing stars moving slowly below. Above him, rows of alien leaders watched in silence. On one side sat the Dragon Council, massive shapes resting in coils of fire and shadow. On the other side were human and alien commanders, their faces tight with anger and fear. At Ethan's feet lay the blanket. Inside it, the dragon babies slept. The sight alone caused whispers to spread across the chamber. "This is impossible," someone said. "No human has ever been allowed this close." Ethan kept his hands calm. He did not raise his voice. He did not bow. The Dragon Queen's voice echoed through the court. "This human speaks first." Shock rippled through the room. The High Judge turned toward Ethan. "Human," the judge said, "you stand accused of violating dragon law, interstellar law, and survival protocol. Why should you not be erased?" Ethan looked down at the babies. Then he looked up. "They were cold," he said. Laughter broke out. Angry laughter. "That is not an answer," the judge snapped. Ethan nodded. "It is the only one I have." The judge leaned forward. "You claim dragon young entered your shelter willingly?" "Yes." "You claim you touched them?" "Yes." "And you still live?" "Yes." The court fell silent. The Dragon Queen spoke again. "Let him show what he carries." The judge hesitated, then nodded. "Proceed." Ethan felt the bond awaken. The chamber changed. Suddenly, the court no longer saw Ethan. They saw through him. They felt the cold night, the broken heater, the shaking bodies of the babies. They felt fear, not the fear of humans, the fear of children. Gasps filled the chamber. Several judges recoiled. "That pain," one whispered. "That loneliness." The vision continued. They saw Ethan wrap the blanket. "Stay awake. Refuse orders. Step between weapons and children." They saw the Dragon Queen arrive. They felt her rage. Then they felt her stop. The vision ended. The chamber shook. Many could not speak. The High Judge's voice was quiet now. "This memory, it is unaltered." The Queen's voice rose. "This human did not act as prey. He did not act as hunter. He acted as guardian." Murmurs spread across the court. A human commander stood up. "This proves nothing. Humans have used deception before." The Queen turned her gaze on him. "Then answer this," she said. "Why do my children return to him?" The babies moved inside the blanket. One crawled out, eyes half open. It looked around the chamber, then crawled toward Ethan and pressed against his leg. The court erupted. "That is not fear," someone whispered. "That is trust." The High Judge stood slowly. "Human Ethan," the judge said, "your actions have exposed a flaw in our laws." The commander shouted, "You cannot change the law because of one human." The judge raised a hand. No, he said. We change it because the law failed. The chamber grew brighter. By unanimous ruling, the judge continued. This human is granted dragon protection status. The commander froze. What? The dragon queen spoke with final authority. Any harm to him will be answered by dragon fire. The court recorded the words. History shifted. Ethan did not smile. He only knelt beside the babies and adjusted the blanket. The queen watched him. This is not the end, she said. This is the beginning. Above the court, signals spread across the galaxy. A new truth traveled faster than light. A human chose kindness, and the universe listened. The warm one. The galaxy did not change in one day. It changed in whispers. Ships passed each other in silence, carrying the same story. Space stations replayed the court recording again and again. Soldiers who once feared dragons now spoke their name with caution, not hatred. And at the center of it all was one human. Ethan. He did not return to the frozen outpost. Instead, he was given a small home near the dragon sanctuary, far from cities and weapons. The air there was warm. The land was quiet. The sky glowed with soft firelight at night. The dragon babies lived with him. They grew quickly. Their scales became bright, their wings strong. But even as they grew larger, they still returned to him at night. They crawled onto his bed, curled beside him, and slept under the same old blanket, the one that started everything. Other dragons watched from a distance. They did not interfere. They remembered. The dragon queen visited often. She never spoke loudly. She never threatened. She watched Ethan care for her children, feed them, clean their wounds, speak softly when they had nightmares. One night, as the stars burned red above them, the queen spoke. You gave them something we forgot, she said. Ethan looked up. What? A place where fear does not live. The babies slept between them, warm and safe. In the galaxy, laws were rewritten. Human schools taught a new lesson. Not about weapons, not about fire, about choice. They told the story of a cold night, of a broken heater, of a human who did not turn away. Dragons changed too. They stopped hunting human borders. They stopped burning first. They began watching, learning. Years passed. The dragon babies became legends. But they never forgot the human who held them when they were weak. On Ethan's last night, the air was calm. He sat outside, wrapped in the blanket, older now. The dragons rested around him. Massive shapes curled close like children again. The queen lowered her head. You will be remembered, she said. Ethan smiled softly. I was just warm, he replied. The queen spoke a name that echoed across the stars. The warm one. When Ethan passed, the sky burned brighter than ever before. Dragons roared, not in anger, but in mourning. And across the galaxy, one truth became law. Power does not make legends. Kindness does. And sometimes, the strongest fire in the universe is the warmth of a human heart.